most startups are really not about ideas or the product or the market or timing, right? It's really about people. If you have the right people who are good and who know how to be together even better than they are good individually, there is a lot you can do. A new class of people are emerging who are just addicted to learning. But with the GPT, you can do a PhD level of understanding a topic if you want to. I enjoy building company. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing. And as a result, everything I've done since then have felt very familiar. It's very difficult for me to get surprised, even more so now. So somewhere I have the clarity that I want to be an entrepreneur, and best way to learn how to become one is to work in early stage companies. No one tells you when you start a company that building a company is minimum 10-year journey. If any of you have any illusion of building something of meaningful value and having an exit and then retiring and go or whatever, not going to happen. It may happen, but after 10 years, and that's minimum. I think the great companies are built over decades.
Today's guest, Mukesh, absolutely needs no introduction. He's been a founder multiple times over. I think a polymath, and I would say an eternal learner, right? All of us have used products that you've built, shaped, and kind of architected, right? And hence, I'm going to skip on that part of the chronology completely. I'll share a bit of personal anecdote. I think two of my interesting journeys, which influence a lot in the way I think and do things, had a bit of overlap with Mukesh, and I think it was great and important for me personally to kind of having gone through those experiences. Mukesh, of course, outside what he's built, he's been a author of 3 books that he has written. He runs the Sparks podcast, which now has 1 million+ followers. And of course, with Meraki Labs and now Nurix continues to build. So welcome, Mukesh. Welcome to SPC.
Thank you. Yeah, I think very excited to be here. I don't know when was the last time I saw so many founders in one room, so I'm feeling a little intimidated. I think you guys are building all the cool stuff. Like my stuff is, way in the past, but I've also known Aditya and Ruchi for a long period of time. I was very happy when they decided to start SPC. In fact, I've known them when they were starting out SPC, like 7-8 years ago. So it's great to see, SPC not only be present in India, but get so much traction. I keep hearing good things about SPC community founders. And of course, I've known Prateek for the longest period of time. We worked together at Myntra, 11, 12 years ago, longer, maybe 13, 14 years ago. And I've since then also overlapped a bit at Tower Digital as well. So, very happy to be here.
Awesome. Mukesh, while I script on the chronology for you, and one of the things we do love here is a good origin story, right? Because there's people who are almost always navigating what's next and navigating professional and personal -1 to zeros. Would love to hear a bit about some pivotal moments in your journey, which you think were extremely influential in shaping the person you've become over the years.
Maybe I'll pick up 2-3 different things. One is so in 99, I was a business analyst in a consulting company in Chicago. I did not like it at all. And that was the height of whole .com boom. We were, every day reading news about these .com companies changing the world, going public. And, there was a FOMO is not a new term. We had FOMO back then as well, which I was feeling. And I wanted to be in the middle of action. So I quit my job and moved back to Silicon Valley and tried to start a company, but I had no idea. There was obviously no SPC at the time to guide us. So things fizzled out very quickly. But one key decision I made was that I'm only going to work for early stage startups. And that's what I did for next 8 years. And I think that was my very slow, but I think very deep startup MBA. I observed a lot about building products, pivots, founder investor dynamics, and ups and downs as startup journey goes. And as a result, everything I've done since then have felt very familiar. I think it's very difficult for me to get surprised, even more so now. So that's kind of somewhere I have the clarity that I want to be an entrepreneur, and best way to learn how to become one is to work in early stage companies. Sounds very easy in retrospect, but difficult because you are also saying no to all the good jobs. There are no dearth of great companies in Valley that you can work for, you can get promotions regularly, and you can see your career progress and so on. For me, like I kept choosing startup that kept failing, so there was other than me having vague feeling that I'm learning, there's not much to show for. But I had the courage of conviction, at least on that count. uh, Other, let's see, you mentioned origin story, so I can share a cult origin story which is interesting. This was in 2016. I had just moved out of Flipkart, and generally you have this thing, after you had exit, and everyone at some point think you will take 6 months off, 1 year off, travel around the world, this that, right? So I had a similar thoughts, but kind of 1 month into it, I started getting bored, and I used to go for a walk on this lake on Sarjapur Road, and I started noticing during my one of those walks there was this one gym which had that mixed martial art logo outside, said cult, and I would see it every day, and I was a little intrigued. I've heard about mixed martial arts, and I was obviously quite free, so I thought maybe I should try to learn MMA. So one day I walked in and I asked around, and got introduced to Rishabh, who was the founder who started cult. He told me about MM and so on. He said, "Okay, why don't you try trial class?" I said, "Okay, I'll do the trial class." And it was a very hardcore MMA gym, uh, and they were in the class that day had this rugby drills. So in rugby drills, among many things, at one drill, what they do is you take literally rugby ball, and let's say they pair me with Prateek, and if it's my turn, then he will grab the ball, and I have to somehow wrest it out of his control. So I was somehow end up getting paired with this, huge guy. He was like 4 inch taller than me, about 100 kg in size, and so on. And I had the ball. I'm very competitive, and I'm not going to let go the ball so easily. So what happens in that drill? You start keep pulling, and sooner or later, you end up on the ground, but you're still not letting go the ball. So I was on the ground at the ball that I was not going to let go, and this guy on top of me, and then I think he won in the end, but I started feeling a lot of pain in my chest, and which I ignored for a couple of days, but eventually I went for an X-ray and I had a fractured rib. So I will not tell the rest of the story, but even despite that, I went back to cult, got to know Rishabh, acquired cult, and obviously all of you know what cult is today.
Awesome. I'm curious on the first one, right? The dot com era, both the boom and the bust, and a bit of aftermath, which was almost like going sideways, and people were, at least for a few months, it felt people are getting disenchanted with what the overall story was. I'm curious what your learnings from those 7 years were, right? Having seen the ups and downs, right? The years of working with startups, right? Which you said that nothing surprised you, right? I'm just curious on one or two, three things which kind of stuck.
Nothing surprised me later on. I mean, during that time, I was full of surprises. I think first and foremost, I was just having fun, so the things like nothing really bothered me. Yeah, every day was exciting. I felt very much in control, and most startups, definitely in those days in Silicon Valley, it's obviously a very open culture. So you can go talk to anyone, you can speak your mind. And if you have an interesting idea, you just go do it. There is no one to ask permission from. So that freedom I really enjoyed. I think that made me feel I'm a right place, and I had some at least gauge of I felt I'm continuously learning something. I'm getting to have influence in the company fairly early, and so that was very empowering. So it was more internal compass. I think I did not have either if the company does well or gets acquired or gets sold or you get promotion. So I was not getting much of that, but just being challenged on an everyday basis, learning. I think a sense of working with really smart people, and a sense of while I was not founder of those companies, I kind of felt like one because no one told me that you can't act like founder. So I will do what I feel like doing, and partly also learned that you can't just do my way or highway either. You need to persuade people. You know, to take people along. The reason I think later on things didn't surprise me because 3 out of 4 companies I worked for as an engineer product manager died, and good companies don't die easily. They die after a lot of fight, lot of fight, like not internal fight, but fight it out. Um, you know, changes, adoption. You start shipping things faster and faster. You learn how to survive with very lean money. Unexpected things happen. You get a customer when you're not expecting it, and so on. So like just in some ways uh, like you're watching a movie at 3x speed. So I've seen all of those, so many permutations of things that go on, and few things, two key lessons that that stayed with me during those time. One is sometime what I see when a startup starts to do little well, or we start to hire people from outside, a little more senior people. You could see that some kind of politics start to develop, and I hated that. It's just a small company, 50, 100 people. And I remember like telling myself again, if I ever start a company, I will do everything I can to make sure there is no politics. And I think I went on my way. I have tried to do that. Second thing I realized that at the end of most startups are really not about ideas or the product or the market or timing, right? It's really about people. If you have the right people who are good and who know how to be together even better than they are good individually, there is a lot you can do. And I saw that play out for Cult during pandemic time. I think we were somewhat spoiled company from because we raised a lot of money on day one, doing all kind of things. Pandemic happens and our revenue, business went from $100 million to zero. Like a movie theater and gyms were the two worst hit thing because there's only two places where you need people to come closer for business to work. But we had a very strong team which kind of stuck together. They really rallied, and we went through so much transformation during 18 months. So I think in some way, ended up being about the people, and they're able to work together through, is what I think made the difference for Cult.
That's amazing. And you're right. I think companies often come apart because people are coming apart, and it's really hard as a leader to architecture culture, right? And so I would be curious about your approach around how do you think about it, and also maybe talk to us about how has your approach changed over the years, right? And maybe lastly, since you mentioned cult, what were those factors that made the team rally during that period, right?
I think maybe all the answers somewhat interconnected. And so my approach to culture and team building generally, I think rooted in this idea of, just transparency. Ray Dalio in his book, he used the word radical candor, choose whichever word. But I feel if you can really have, significant transparency, it serves as an antidote to a lot of bad things that happen in the company. So I'll give an example. One of the things that I practice and now, in fact, I just did yesterday also at Nurix, and I almost have too much fun with this now. Is so let's say uh, Prateek, he's in my team. He comes up to me and says, I want to give feedback about something I'm having. I think marketing is not doing well. There is this thing, or this person has this issue. I said, great, you have very good feedback. We can do something about it. Let's call that person also in the room right now. And the moment I say, people say, actually, I was trying to say that, no, it's okay. No, let's have a transparent conversation. I'll call the person and then I'll say, Pratik, yeah, let's continue. You were saying something, so something is not right. Can you repeat what you were saying? So let's ask collectively problem solve. And that it's a very simple act. But over a period of time, what happens is people learn that next time when something happens, he will go directly to that person, which is obviously very healthy. If he can't resolve with the person, he will come to me with that person saying, we have this disagreement. We are not able to figure out how to. And that generally leads to a constructive outcome, b whatever it is, it's in front of everyone. So there is no opportunity to second guess. No one is thinking of what are the behind the door conversations that are happening, who is aligning who, and all of that. So I think that plays a huge role. Second, I think most startups, going back to Cult, we tried to experiment with a lot of radical org constructs. So, one of the things, when I was before I was at Flipkart or even Myntra, when it became a large company, we got many layers, we have all these titles and so on. And I felt in some ways, titles and hierarchy also disenfranchise people. Like if you can tell all you want that we treat everyone equal, but if we come to a room and, my title is assistant product manager and he is senior vice president of, product. it's very difficult for us to have the same voice. So in cult, we try to till date we don't have titles. So somehow people still join and work, and we say you make up your title whatever you want to be, and many other things. But really creating this culture of making people feel a sense of equality. Everyone, voice matters. Everything is transparent. Lot of communication, but connecting. Yeah, I think that, see, all of us, the work on a day-to-day basis is quite mundane. If you just think about writing some line of code or creating a graphic or shipping a package, and it's not exciting. So how do you connect that to the larger purpose? So for cult, larger purpose being making healthy lifestyle easy for large number of people was super clear, and we were living that purpose. So that again as act as a binding glue. I think people, everyone there felt like we are here doing something larger than ourselves, something that really matters in the world. And in some way pandemic was also a call to really live up to that, because people's healths were suffering. And whole cult team rallied. We put together this whole online fitness program that some of you also might have used. It was very popular for a 12-month period. So I think having that larger sense of purpose and overall generally healthy transparent culture, which eventually leads to a lot of trust, which is trust is very very hard to build. But so there was team, I think, which has mutual trust and respect, who believed in the mission, and that they found enough energy to stay around and reinvent in during the period.
Interesting. Often, the point that you made, right? People end up thinking that what I'm doing is mundane and possibly is devoid of meaning, right? And of course, I can try and figure out how to connect it to the larger purpose. But how do people develop a sense of both ownership and the fact that, hey, you know what, this crisis is my crisis, not somebody else's to solve, and maybe somebody else is accountable for it?
I think it starts with I think it's very difficult to in some ways teach or influence people to have ownership. A lot of it, people come with this. I think I'll give again very trivial example, but the point is very significant. And is and maybe it is a little before you joined at Tata Digital, but when I joined there in the office, you know it was early days of video conference and all that, and we'll go to any conference room and fiddle with the video conference system. It will not work, and 50-20 minutes will get wasted, and everyone will complain about IT or budget, yeah, this that, just it was like almost 3-4 months. At some point, I called the timer. I said, like, all of you in the room are smart people, you are very resourceful, how, how come no one is raising the hand and saying I'm going to fix it? And then one guy there, Vijay, he said, I'm going to fix it. And I asked him, how much time do you need? He said, I need a week. That was Thursday, Friday. I said, can you fix it by Monday? He thought for like 15 seconds. He said, I'll fix it by Monday. But I'll let you know what I need, and you just need to enable. I said, done. You don't have to ask me. You're the empowerment. And he got it done. Now, one person solved the problem in probably 20 different conference rooms, multiplied by 7-8 people on average in each conference room, 80 multiplied by, I don't know, 5 meetings per person. So a conversation that's playing out, 1,000, for 1,000 instances every day. So that, you difficult to teach. Some people have it. I think I'm guessing all of you, you've chosen to quit your well-paying job, etc., let go a lot of opportunity. So you clearly had the initiative ownership. The question is, how do you make sure you don't block it for other people? So the lot of companies, what happens is somehow inadvertently you end up building culture, and a lot of founders also, I want to control everything. So Prateek can be as innovative as he wants as long as he gets my buy-in. That is not, then I'm not giving the message that you are empowered, you can take calls. So how do you create an environment where people have that environment to exercise their agency? And good companies do a great job. You need to build some checks and balances. It needs to be give and take. You need to look at people's batting ratio. So I mean, startups, startups are risk. Let's assume 90% of startups fail. So overall macro batting ratio is only 10%. So within the company, like, can I have can I empower him so that he can, if he fails 1 out of 5 times or 1 out of 4 times, it's not a problem. It's like, so what conversation you have when people take risk and initiative? Sometimes you may have a very small conversation which will give the impression that don't step out of your boundaries, don't do anything without aligning other people, right? So and then you get trained into that, and that's what you start doing.
Interesting. I think the last one on talent, because I think a lot of us, we do agonize about attracting great talent and creating the right talent density for the environments that we are in. One of the clear leading indicators I've seen on startups that make it or teams that make it is the quality of talent that's there, right? And talk to us about how important it is for founders to be talent greedy early into the journey, and how should they approach talent when team size small, maybe 5, 10 people, and as they grow.
I think my answer is going to be very cliched. I think everyone in the room knows what the answer is, right? It's probably going to be single biggest factor into how far you go, and also how enjoyable the journey is. So I think for the first 5, 7, 10 hires, I think you should invest inordinate amount of time and effort. Uh, Only I think one other color I'll add is, while drive and competence and talent, they're all very important, but at this stage I would say culture fit is probably even more important, because you are already going to a very stressful environment with a lot of existential issues happening all the time. You want to be working with people that you have genuine fun working with. You can have any conversation anytime you want, without all the second order issues showing up about what is my role, what is your role, how do we make decisions here, and he said this, she said that, all of those is uh, very unhealthy. Negative conversations can be like very draining. So I will, and sometimes you'll make mistake. I think early days, the moment you realize make a mistake, is probably a good way to just part ways early also. Like a bigger company, you can give some time, and it's okay, 3 months, 6 months, people, whatever. But I don't know, startups don't have time for that. So it's not going well for 2, 3 months, just an honest, transparent conversation, like, look, both of us are going to go down together, or one of us, I can at least give it a shot, and you try your luck somewhere else, right? Uh, or vice versa. So I think, yeah, if you are at whatever stage you guys are, you should even right now as I'm saying it, if let's say you're 5 people in your team, ask yourself a mentally very honest question, like, will you rehire all these people today? If the answer is not absolute yes, you probably have a problem you want to think about.
I think you shared the origin story of Cure.fit cult. Let's go back to Myntra, right? You started Myntra. The direction was completely different. There was some personalized gifting. There was B2B. I was one of the people who ordered during the personalized merchandise days, right? We made a T-shirt for a marathon that we were running. But I'm just curious on how did the pivot to fashion retail happen? And given that the first phase was incredibly hard, how did you know that this is where you possibly should go? And how did you know when things with lag metrics, when things start really going well, you know that it's working out well? But what were the first leading metrics which told you, hey, you know what, this is you're onto something?
Yeah, for us, the pivot to fashion was in some ways quite data driven. So as you mentioned, we were doing personalized stuff, that led us to at some point partnering with the various IPL teams as well as the sports brands for personalized team jerseys. So as IPL was starting to take off, and in those days, at Myntra, you can order RCB jersey with your name and number on that. And because we are a personalization gifting player, that made a lot of sense. But and as we were doing it, at some point, 2011 was also World Cup that was hosted in India, and Nike wanted to do a large campaign with to sell, I don't know, something like 100,000 jerseys, personalized jerseys, and we got that contract from Nike, and so it did extremely well. And we started to get to know those brands at some point. Then you start to put two and two together. If one SKU of this brand can say so much, what if we had the entire catalog with us? I think so by that time, it was 4 years into it, we had a better sense of category size and so on. While we were a niche category, by the time we had developed pretty good muscle of, we learned how to sell stuff online, how to manage operational logistics. So machinery was there, but at some point, just a realization that in some ways what we can sell is going to be proportional to how big a selection we have. And almost 18-month experience selling all these personalized jerseys has given us a lot of comfort and familiarity with all these sports brands, which kind of became first pivot. So initially Myntra was only selling 4 brands. When we pivoted into fashion, Adidas, Nike, Puma, and one or two others. From there, it was iterative. You just at some point you really get the game that bigger the selection, and over a period of time, selection exploded, and so did the demand.
Interesting. Uh, you know, I think Myntra is one product that's remained differentiated over the years, right? And often people, especially Myntra alums, they have this sense of pride that, hey, you know what, we are part of something special. Uh, of course, part of it was culture, part of it was is actually what you see on a day-to-day basis even now, right? And somehow a few of us believe that it had to do something with your taste, right? Or at least how you ended up developing, right, your taste, and you ended up pushing a bunch of us into building it out. I'm curious on what has been your personal process on developing the taste on something like this, right? Because being a com science engineer working in a bunch of value-based startups, this taste on fashion and consumer products is not a natural thing to come. So I'm just curious on the process, and yeah, let's start off with that, and then I have a follow-on.
I think the process starts from curiosity, and you mentioned at the beginning learning. I think increasingly, I want to, if I were to describe myself in one word, I'll just say learner. I've always enjoyed it, and I think now I also realize that I've always enjoyed it, and I would rather do that. So my approach to pretty much anything I get involved in, I try to understand, what it is, how does it work. So when we started to pivot to fashion, I think the natural curiosity question started to come up. You know, where does fashion come from? Let's say why there are certain colors more represented. Who makes these choices, where are these products manufactured. So that led to almost, I think after pivot for 1 year, I was studying the business of fashion, visiting factories, watching products being get made, talking to stylists, designers, these fashion trend magazines. And after 12 to 18 months, I think I had a better intellectual understanding about the entire value chain of fashion than I think most people in India. And in that journey, at some point, also realize fashion is one category where no one needs to buy more clothes. For example, let's say we do a freeze today that none of you get to buy one more piece of clothes for next 2 year. What will happen to you? Nothing. You will be fine. I think I'm pretty sure you have enough clothes, right? So fashion is very impulse driven. I'm just I see something, I like it, I want to buy. It's also this whole fashion, they use this term window shopping. So fashion is also entertainment for a lot of people. If you like, a lot of people go to malls, you just like looking at nice clothes, nice people, and so on. It just, there is a like big entertainment quotient. So once I started realize that, and third thing I realized that at some level everyone cares about looking good. Like it's a, even if people can say whatever they want, I don't care, but it's not true. Everyone does care in their own way. So once I realized that, I think that became, so we defined, you may remember that Mintra's purpose was helping people look good. And we said, we need to translate that sentiment to everything we do, every email, every banner. There was a time where I used to review and approve every banner on the homepage. And
And those were tough days.
yeah, I mean, at least I pretended that I know what good aesthetics look like. So I think one is again, uh, clarity that is coming from deep study and understanding of what business you are in. And somewhere, look, generally all founders are good at, you have to back yourself. So I I even today I won't claim that I have a particularly good aesthetic taste, but I had a taste and I was willing to just back my taste. And I would just make a very simple assumption: if I like it, probably a lot of other people like it. So for those reviewing those banners, I was just in some ways backing my taste and look for data over a period of time as well. So I think it's a combination of all those things, which yeah.
Interesting, because I think you made a point on learning. So I'm just curious on just first developing the taste is what you talked about. Talk to me about the process of staying sharp, right? Because it's not a given, because everything becomes stale over a period of time.
Unless you're learning all the time, then nothing will get stale, right? So I think, I mean, right now, the reason I'm enjoying my current work so much is I'm getting to learn so much about AI. I'm trying to go as deep as possible, and it's quite new for me. And so, yeah, it's like, but instead of that, if I try to build an AI company without really going deep into this, then my thought process will be stale. So partly, other thing is, I mean, most of you in my room, I'm assuming, are first time founders. In some way, it's good to be first time founders, because you don't have too many preconceived notions of what works, what doesn't work. You don't have, that whole thing of, been there, done that, and so on. As people grow in their career, especially for, you grow in leadership roles or a second time founder, there is a very high probability of that happening to you, which can make you stale. So for me, it's a continuous reminder. I want to operate as if like a first time entrepreneur. I want to forget about whatever happened in the past. I enjoy building company. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing. But I want to do it from the vantage point of someone, who I would like to believe I'm doing it the first time, and not go keep going back to the past, because a lot of that will come with handicap, tools or things which may have worked at that time, but very different. So this whole, Zen mind, beginner mind kind of outside, the outlook is something is very important. I try to actively cultivate for myself.
You talked about learning about AI, right? And I think most people in this room are possibly building something which is either leveraging AI or working at some layer in that entire piece, right? Right from you met some people earlier who were working on foundation models to people who are trying to build interesting stuff. Talk to us, and almost all of us who are in this space today are kind of struggling to stay up on the curve, right? Because there's so much happening and it feels overwhelming at times, right? Talk to us about your own personal information diet today, right? And how are you trying to, or how are you managing to stay afloat?
Yeah, I think maybe I'll try to answer differently. So if you think about, there is a AI fluff, AI podcast, AI books, and there's a real AI. There is a there are not that many concepts. Transformer is now 10-year old. The scaling laws, which are, so a lot of juice right now in the all the pre-training methods, all the post-training, like how people are extracting more and more juice out of reinforcement learning. And these are these techniques are well known. I think anyone with a serious 1 year of effort. So I would filter out, what is the real, like, talking about technology of AI, or fluff slash marketing slash promise slash AGI slash, world will land slash, whatever BS, right? So I think if you filter that, then there is not too much. There is Stanford as the CS 229 course, and it's gone through CS 229. No, Andrewing also has good course, but this is the most. I think he also took a one, so they have multiple versions. You are right. I think Andrewing also did, but so if you want to learn about AI, I would say these are much better resources. And if you've gone through Why Machines Think book, Anil Answami, I'll highly recommend you. He's actually these days in Bangalore, and I think this is the best technical book written on AI, which is quite accessible. It goes into the math of all the linear algebra that goes into it, and you develop a different level of understanding. While people who are writing what GPT-5 can do, not do, I don't think it's very useful information. What do you do? Like, so other thing I'll do, like, again, I'm assuming that a lot of technical founders, just work with the API of these new models and play with that and build prototype, and you see for yourself, what is there. So I think today the reason we are drowning information, there are too many people, commentating without depth. So if you can just draw a bar somewhere and just, swim below that and ignore everything above that.
Interesting. No, that's very useful. Um, I am, uh, you've been with Meraki and then now with Nurix, right? And especially when you launched Meraki, almost like a venture studio and early investments into interesting people, I would say. Uh, Tell us about your process of maybe separating what is interesting for you versus what is not, right? And what do you actually look for?
Changes over a period of time. Just clarifying. So Meraki Labs is the venture studio where we want to incubate on average one company every year. So Nurix is our second company. So I'm with, in some ways, both with Meraki Labs and Nurix, while Nurix is taking most of my day-to-day attention. At some point, we'll incubate next company as well, and we are tinkering with few ideas right now. Uh, Interest, I think I don't. I would say any process. It's just maybe clearer about my interest at any given point. I think last 4 or 5 years, I started to get more and more interested in just science and deep tech. So the genesis of Meraki Labs, and I was a little confused, I think 22, 23, but it became even clearer that is, so next phase of my career, I only want to work on things which have genuine deep tech aspect to it. Like my first taste of that I got through my investment in Skyroot, which is building rockets. They have done outstanding job. So that has also given me a lot of confidence that there are ambitious entrepreneurs in India who can do like really difficult deep tech things. So while I've been thinking on from science and deep tech purely from interest point of view, I'm increasingly realizing this is also of a huge strategic significance for the country. Like we are in some ways getting left behind in the technology arms race. Really nowhere in the picture there is. So we have obviously immense talent in the country, but that whole deep tech ecosystem, some people call it a product nation, that whole thing is still very weak. But that's probably the next phase of whole startup ecosystem evolution. So I want to participate in that and do whatever I can at my level to facilitate that.
The first one is, you've kind of, in some sense, been a relentless pursuer of excellence, right? And you say learning, but it's almost always had a vector. It was never learning for learning's sake, right? Uh, so, uh, so talk to us about maybe two or three things which you learned or maybe inflected on over the years and you're really pleased about that you kind of manage that. I'll possibly give you an example, right? I remember that health became an obsession for you over the years, right? And then you went really deep into it. Of course, you wrote Hacking Health and Cure.fit and bunch of things that almost seem like an extension to that. And so, so that's one of the things that I believe that you kind of inflected on over the years, and I think you should be both pleased and proud about. So I'm just wondering what else might have possibly been one of those things wherein you've changed yourself in the or learning has changed you in the process.
Yeah, I think there's been two, three broad themes. And I think one is, I think learning for learning's sake itself is, I think, immensely powerful. So while, I started CureFit in 2016, I've been interested in health and fitness for at least, 15 years before that. I think since I would say 2001, 2, I've been active. I tried, pretty much all kind of fitness, diet regimens, but also read simultaneously. I think I don't read health books anymore. I think bored of that. But for 20 years, any good health book, would have come up. I would have read and over a period of time attended a lot of conference, so on. So by that, so it's like this one of those things of dots connected in the retrospect. So by the time I started CureFit, I knew a lot about the overall health fitness ecosystem. I could see, why health is starting to become accessible. All the interesting stuff which was happening in the longevity biohacking space, which was not that public. Now it's like a lot more public. So in some ways, initially it was learning for learning's sake. I just enjoyed, which eventually led to creation of CureFit. I think even so three broad, three or four things that I've kind of read for longest period of time. One is just startup business building. I think that has helped a lot in my approach to how I go about building businesses. Health longevity we talked about, and then other is just science and deep tech. Again, I've been reading about that for since my college days, and as a result of that, I have certain way of looking at the world, certain understanding of science, certain appreciation. And so now when I'm doing this deep tech venture studio, I am coming at it from a lot more informed point of view, and in some ways kind of a developed passion point of view, as opposed to that last 6 months I started noticing that crypto is the new fad and therefore let's build a crypto company, right? That's very difficult to acquire a deep passion for that, something you just gotten acquainted. Sometime it can happen. So I think it's yeah, I think a lot of my learning has been honestly for learning's sake, and it somehow in future ends up being useful in some way.
More on the founder journey, right? Often the fact is that founders, and you talked about health, right? Founders often lose health, right? If physical, mental, emotional, right, and a bunch of other things, right? What would you recommend to people? And most of us in this room, maybe barring the two of us, are younger folks, right? So I'm just curious, what would you, if you were to go back to some of the younger founders and advise them on how should their approach on this side might be?
I think few things, and this is a topic I think you should first of all probably pay more attention to this question from today than others. See the no one tells you when you start a company that building a company is minimum 10-year journey. if any of you have any illusion of building something of meaningful value and having an exit and then retiring and go or whatever, not going to happen. It may happen, but after 10 years. And that's minimum. I think the great companies are built over decades. If you look at, you know, world's most valuable companies today, now if you quickly look at, Apple and Microsoft, both are 50-year-old companies. Nvidia is what now getting close to 35-year-old company. And most of it not heard of Nvidia 5 years ago. Definitely nobody 10 years ago, right? So for 25 years, like today, you can say whatever you want about Nvidia, but you can't take away the fact that after 25 years after Jensen Huang founded Nvidia, no one knew who he is, no one knew what they do. Probably like no one gave him a chance also against Intel and AMD. So I think realizing that now, if you are going to play a long-term journey, then you have to also last a long-term journey, and that's where the investment in your health and fitness really pays off in a big way. I really believe, I think no one can be genuinely productive for more than 10ish hours a day. It's just not possible. So I think when you work, 12 is still okay, 14, 15, 16 hours and so on. Somewhere you're also, it's a diminishing return thing. You're also paying the price for, not getting enough sleep, not being physically fit. Uh, when you're in a stressful environment, the easiest thing to boost your mood is to you know eat some junk food, because it at least gives a immediate dopamine high, and anything which gives you immediate dopamine high is also very addictive. So that becomes a habit very quickly, and then so very quickly you'll fall into a pattern where you're sleeping less. Just I think there is absolutely almost nothing that is worth not getting 7 hours of sleep. And what all these things do, let's say you invest 10, 11 hours of your day in health oriented stuff, which is sleeping, some kind of activity, movement, maybe some meditation. The Your productivity will see massive boost. So rest of 10 hours you will have high energy, you will have fresh ideas, you will be able to focus on things, you will be a lot more calmer when dealing with a stressful situation and so on. And more importantly, you will be able to do this for a long period of time. You will take 2-3 years to really just arrive somewhere where you have a product in your hand, some kind of product market fit. At some point, if things are going well, things start to scale up, which will bring its own challenges, so on. So I think for anyone who want to build entrepreneurship as a career and not as a one time hobby, has to invest in building that stamina and energy and mental fortitude, which investment health and fitness kind of gives you for free.
Amazing. Thanks, Mukesh. We'll turn it over to the audience for a few questions.
Hi, Mukesh. Thank you for joining us and thank you for the products that you have built. I'm very curious about your learning process. Like, let's say today I say, learn about quantum technology. Let's say you have to read everything about it or know as well as you know about AI. What will you do? What's your action plan?
Yeah, I think my process is maybe a little somewhat old school, but I call it, just if you anything you're interested in, if you read the 10 best books on that topic, you will know probably more than most people in the world, because most people will not read 10 books. They may read one or two or three. And why 10 books? Because it gives you perspective from many different perspective of science. So when you're analyzing the situation from this vantage point, that vantage point, little earlier perspective, later perspective. So I actually did that for my first pass of AI learning in a lot more than 10. Last year, between January to June, I would have read probably 20, 25 books. I think I posted that screenshot on LinkedIn also. You go back and look at my history, you can see those. Those were not very deep tech books on AI, but it gave me pretty good perspective of historical evolution of AI, major breakthroughs, major players, and all that. After that, since for AI, I wanted to get a lot more technical. So I started doing, these kind of courses I mentioned. Andrish Karpati has, good course, which I'm pretty sure a lot of people have gone through. And then last 1 year, all of it has been taken over by GPT. Now with GPT, you can, so the way I learn with GPT now, I will find these topic I'm interested in, like, find especially if it's technically oriented, I'll find 4 or 5 textbooks, get their PDF, upload it to GPT. Then I'll give instruction for it to create a module wise topic list for me. I've created my own whole prompt structure of how I want to learn. So I say, like, for each topic, you start with next topic. First, give me TLDR, right? Motivation behind that. What are the key conceptual ideas? And then say, let's go step by step. You like next bite size and then wait for me. I can ask a follow-up question. I say continue. And I think I'm finding it so liberating. I feel I can just learn anything. I think I was reading somewhere now a new class of people are emerging who are just addicted to learning. They don't work, and I'm in the danger of falling in that category. But with the GPT, it's just whole new level of you can do a PhD level of understanding a topic if you want to.
We've been in the online retail space, and then you shifted predominantly into the physical space. How did you do that transition, and did you actually take any of the learnings on the online world and try and apply it to the offline world to any extent?
Look,
How different is it?
yeah, e-commerce to fitness wasn't that much online to offline transition, because think about e-commerce is predominantly offline business. You have to set up all these massive warehouses. You have to set up all these logistic operations. One of the biggest nightmare is how do you enable a seamless return experience? At some point, Myntra, we started trialing with the whole try and buy experience. So you have to solve a lot of offline. So by that time, I think I was done with Myntra Flipkart journey, very comfortable with the offline operations. The format was different. Instead of warehouse and delivery fleet, we now had a gym, but still a physical location where a lot of people need to show up, a lot of processes, a lot of backend automation. In fact, it was kind of reverse. We were able to bring a lot of online consumer app ideas to an offline business experience, which in some ways created an edge for what cult experience became eventually.
So one question, distribution trumps product. I've been hearing this quite often these days. What is your take on it, and how do you look at it?
Depends on what stage of a mega trend you are in. I think long term, product will trump a lot of things. But when today, it's impossible to define what a good product is. The good product today may be a feature in next release of GPT. So it's very difficult to say that I have arrived at an end state good product. So in that situation, distribution starts to become more important. If let's say you have 10 customers, I have 100 customers, and let's say your product is 20% better than me, but I can see what are you doing different than me. I can copy it quickly, and now I have got same product as you, but 10 times more customers. So that's why people say distribution is more important. And I think at this stage, which is a little bit of gold rush, a little bit of land grab. So if you look at Cursor versus any other code generation tools, there's not that much difference. You can do Cloud Code is probably better now at this point, but a lot of people are just used to Cursor got there first. People have built that trust with that, and that will buy Cursor short to medium term advantage. That's not to say it will guarantee them long term win. Like eventually, if let's say Cloud Code or any other tool like how Canva was a really raised the bar on Photoshop is different, and that delta has stayed. So I think long term product will win, but short term distribution can give you some advantages.
Thank you, Mukesh. It was a great session. Quick question. I think very few people in the country would have the kind of consumer insights like you do. What are some interesting consumer trends at the intersection with AI that you're very excited about?
It's evolving rapidly, but I think the thing to pay attention to, and Sam Altman also said recently, like India has the highest number of users for OpenAI anywhere in the world, and people spend huge amount of time. So I think for me that's very interesting. I would like to understand what are all these people doing. What is their relationship with AI? Yeah, there are two ways to interpret that, but I meant more. What are they trying to use AI for? And I'm sure there were a lot of interesting trends. I think people are becoming very heavily dependent on AI. I think at this point, most people, they trust, there was, last year we were talking about hallucination. Today, people, take all kind of advice from GPT, and they trust more than, their closest friends or parents or whoever, right? So right now, I will not guess, I know, but I think people are becoming very quickly kind of codependent on AI. And that is going to have, I think, massive ramifications for pretty much anyone. It's almost like AI will become some kind of gatekeeper. That is, so literally, you want to sell me something, talk to my AI first. Like unless my AI tells me like this is a good product, which leads to this whole generative engine optimization kind of thing. Like very quickly, people obviously not searching, they are going to mostly GPT asking. So if you had a B2C space, how are you optimizing for that, and what kind of response the users are able to get about your product, and so on. So I think, yeah, I'll just study that right now.
Hi, I'm assuming since you're studying LLMs so much, you're also building a forward-looking company where you involve models beyond coding within your company. Uh, are there examples which you have done already or you're exploring? Yeah, maybe even replacing the entire function in some ways.
Yeah, we are very actively experimenting with that. We are trying to leverage as much AI we can in both my companies. At Cure.fit, it's a mature company, but we are looking at a lot of AI-driven transformation there to completely reimagine various processes that we run at scale. At Nurix, we are trying to ask a question. Now we are close to 100% company, but can we operate like a 500% company or 1000% company by leveraging the power of what AI? There, while the promise is there, it's not that straightforward to translate. Like so far, AI has proven itself incredibly great at prototypes and creating something quick, which makes a huge impression, but you cannot put in production or in front of a real user. Like, I don't know if anyone ever built a lovable app which is shipped to end customers. It's just a great demo and then it expire 24 hours later kind of thing. So I think it will happen. At Nurix, we are very focused on it. But are there examples of significant productivity boost beyond some coding productivity enhancement? I don't think so.
I think as a user, it's very delightful to have been seen as a long-term user of Cult. I think what's fascinating is to see how operationally you've codified the level of quality, and it has never depreciated. From different branches to different cities to over the years. How did you manage to obviously do it externally for users, but then what did you do team wise to be able to scale like that, where every team members feels that quality pressure, or the delight to transfer that to the user?
I think the answer of this is, in some ways very well understood. If you uh, go to any of those literature about Six Sigma stuff or total quality management, or we were talking in the room about the theory of constraints and so on. So those, pretty much boils down to that: design, measure, implement, some controls and so on. So just understanding, what is that you want to standardize, how well you have defined it, then you have a way of measuring it every day, and then you controls, meaning if it goes up or down by 5%, will someone notice? The problem with Cult, let's say we if let's say our quality drops in some center in Hyderabad tomorrow and we don't get to know about it, then it will keep deteriorating. But we have built all those measures and controls, so someone will get to know fairly quickly. So it will boil down to recognizing and then just standardizing, measuring and putting those things in practice.
Yeah, when you are in the exploration stage, there might be like 4 or 5 different ideas that look decent to you, but usually you would only go deeper in one. So, is there any framework that you use, maybe at Meraki, that help you, like pick out of the good-looking ideas that maybe this is something I want to go deeper into first?
Few things that you can look into. I think first obvious question to ask is who else is doing it, and if the answer comes out no one, then I'll think very hard about it, because usually there is a good reason that no one is doing it. It may imply that today it's technologically not feasible, or you are way ahead of your time. You could be Palm Pilot, before iPhone, kind of situation. So I think that is a one very strong signal. Um, if you if there are too many people doing it, you know, then that's probably a signal that okay, you are maybe late to the game. But that's also not necessarily a problem. Then you ask next level question that uh, because so many people are there, in some way that is strong signal that market probably exists. Otherwise, so many people will not try. But do you have some kind of outlier thought process, some unique insight, or some possible technological breakthrough where you can at least on paper say, yes, this 20 people are doing, but what I am doing is a step change. And therefore, while I'm, what people call second mover advantage, I can somehow leverage second mover advantage. So that's um, other filter you can look at. Third is just looking at you're being very clear about your capability. All founders come from, see, there is one type of founders who have worked in one area for, let's say, let me take some random example. Let's say somebody work in Google Maps for last 10 years. Now if that person is building some location based, the person has an outlier advantage, because I know about geospatial stuff more than anyone else, lot of nuances. So like versus you are coming in it from cold, what happens if we get excited about starting something, like for example, let's say when I got into fashion, I knew so little about fashion, so it's so easy to be wrong. And fortunately not too many people are building fashion companies at time, and had time to learn and iterate and so on. So that's the other thing, what unique strengths you have also function maybe where you are. An opportunity which is great in some other geography may not be great here for variety of regulatory reason or entrenched player and so on. So these are all the things you can pay attention to. And also you should also not ignore just your genuine excitement about things. I think that also needs to be given significant weightage. Most of the time when I say, when people say, why are you doing this, because I think it's a great opportunity, is generally not a good answer. Just for a great opportunity you cannot give many years of your life with, like, you need to personally enjoy doing that. And it's like, I really like it, almost to the reverse key. I don't care, I'll enjoy so much building this thing. And also then balance it with some of the other signals I mentioned.
Hi, Mukesh. My name is Atisha, and I'm from Ghaziabad. It's a small town in Uttar Pradesh, and I'm an IIT Guwahati alumni as well. So, what we are building, me and my co-founder, is an AI accountant for India. So, while interacting with a few founders before this talk, he asked us why you are not building it for US, because they are ready to pay more. So, my question to you is, do you think India is ready for such a product? And who are really backing such founders?
See, I'll ask you maybe a reverse question. Right? Are there examples of significant consumer technology which has seen huge adoption in US or Europe, but no adoption in India? Anyone think of example like this thing is very big, but people in India are not? Answer is no. Right? Okay, drive through one example, but okay, yeah. Yeah, you can find some exception. By and large, I think especially technology driven trends, I think they are dispersing around the world fairly fast. So either AI driven accounting is going to be a big thing in both US and India, or it's not going to be a big thing either place. The question to ask is size of market. US is obviously 7-8 times the size of Indian economy. There is technology adoption is more widespread. So for certain, let's say SaaS offering and so on, maybe the market could be 20 times. But then you need to also weigh that against the competition, right? It's what is the intensity of competition? See, 1 by 20th depends on 1 by 20th of what. 1 by 20th of $100 billion still $5 billion. $5 billion still very big market. I think I'm pretty sure if I say like any of your companies will be 50 million, 100 million revenue in 5 years, you will happily take it. So do we have big enough market for that ambition? So other things, sometimes people get too carried away saying you know you can only build a $20 million business here or $50 million business. But that is not a good answer, because once you have built a $20 million business, so many new paths open up you cannot see from here. Once you and so on, like for every stage. So all you need to really worry about is, can you get to that first 10 or $20 million revenue with a differentiated product, outlasting the competition? If you do get there, let's talk then, because there will be so many other possibilities that no one can imagine today.
So, in these many companies, you must have built so many leadership teams. So, what is your approach when you are hiring next leadership?
I think first and foremost, like, again, there are different type of founders. There are founders who are very happy to run their company for 20, 30, 40 years also. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. So one is just more, and partly we didn't cover, but part of, just really, I think that I think at least 2 times you become founder. One is when you decide to quit your job and become a founder. Second, you go through like this deep internal journey, and you start to really realize who you are, what matters to you, what can do, can't do, and then you become this kind of second time, like really, who you are as a founder. So you need to know that. I don't think there is a one size fits all answer for everyone. My style, I've been aware, I don't want to run a company for a very long period of time. For me, like about 10 years, the right time frame, probably even shorter for now. So for me, it has been a priority to work with co-founders. It's not easy, but still it brings so much leverage. I still, despite all that, I choose to have co-founders because you have, you can load balance, you can have complementary strengths, and you have the opportunity to step back when you want to step back. I think for fast-paced startups, it's very difficult to hire leaders from outside. Your best bet is your co-founders, other senior people who are in the company. They're kind of with you for many years. They're battle tested. You have seen a lot of highs and lows together. At some point, when you want to step back, like 3 years ago when I was stepping back from Cure.fit, I think I had at least 2 or 3 options of people who could take over from me as CEO, and one of them did, and company is doing probably even better than when I was there. So
Awesome. Thanks, Mukesh. Thanks for doing this. Really enjoyed the conversation. And thanks again for joining us at SPC.
thank you, Prateek. Thank you.
That was another episode of -1 from the team at South Park Commons. Make sure to subscribe to our show wherever you listen to podcasts and find us on social at South Park Commons. And thanks to our friends at Atomic Growth for their support in bringing this episode to life.